Welcome to this week's edition of the Old Paratrooper Podcast. But before we get started, I want to tell you about our new sponsors, Veterans for Veterans. If you served after 1987 and your hearing's taken a knock from your time in the forces, these are the people to speak to. They've helped thousands of veterans like us claim compensation for tinnitus and hearing loss. They're ex-military themselves, so they genuinely get it.
It's free to check if you qualify, and the claims are no win, no fee. To get started, click the link in this video or visit veteransforveterans.co.uk.
Today's guest, former Royal Marine Commando, Falklands veteran, and English Veterans Award silver winner, lifetime achievement. I kind of got there. Jeff Williams, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fine, thanks, Chris. You?
Yeah, really, really good. I knew that'd be a mouthful, as we discussed.
Yeah.
But no, it's great to have you on, Jeff. I know you've done so much for veterans over your whole lifetime, which we'll come on to and we'll talk about. I think it's something we share the same sort of passion for, trying to do the best by our veterans. But before we get into that, I'd like to learn a bit about yourself, buddy. So, I like to always start at the beginning, kind of what you were like growing up and kind of what pushed you down the route into the Royal Marines and beyond. And yeah, over to you, buddy.
Okay, well, I'm born and bred in Birmingham, hence the appalling accent. I came from very humble beginnings, centre of Birmingham. Mum and Dad weren't particularly wealthy, but they did everything they could for us. There were four siblings. I was the eldest. And I think when you're the eldest, you get an awful lot of responsibility, especially back in those days. So, I learned a lot about, I suppose, man management and stuff like that, looking after the kids and babysitting and one thing and another. But it was tough times back then. So we never had an awful lot, but what we did have was happiness and a lovely family unit. So I felt like when I reflect on it, I had a really good, informative, adventurous childhood. The stuff we used to get up to, what legends are made of. I'm not slagging the kids off now. I mean, things have changed as the years have progressed, but certainly we had a lot more freedom than they had, or they have. And I love my childhood. I wouldn't have changed it for anything. Then I think as a youngster, my dad said I had the X factor. What do you say? It's the kiss the baloney stone or whatever, Always found it very easy to communicate with people. Tended to lead from the front. Great believer in, if your men are going to do it, you've got to be able to do it, if not better. And my dad brought me up that way. He used to threaten me when I was younger, when I was a bit naughty, say, the army will sort you out and all this type of stuff, But to be fair, life's got a route for everybody. And I just found myself travelling down that road. And three young lads, 16, sat in a curb chatting, why don't we join the army? So we all bimbled down to Birmingham Recruitment Centre, and they asked me if I wanted to join the paras, but I said no, it was too easy. So
I was waiting for that. I was wondering how long it would be.
I just got to throw that in before you throw one in my direction.
Well, no, fair play. Caught me off guard there. Go on.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's a long story, but my dad didn't want me to join up. My mum certainly didn't want me to join up. Thought I was a bit too young at the time. I was 16. But I got my way. Again, it's a long story, but I ended up joining the Royal Marines at, I was just 17, to be honest, in January 1974. And to be brutally honest with you, I thought I was quite a tough lad. I was school football captain, school cricket captain, everything you could possibly think of on sports I tried. But when I hit those gates at Royal Marines deal, it was the biggest shock of my life, to be honest with you. It was like going into a penal colony. all these young lads always looked harder than me, bigger than me, shaved heads, and I thought, God Almighty, what have I done? But I learned a lot about myself in those first 20 weeks at Deal. They prepared me. They modelled me into the bloke I am today, to be fair. And a lot of the values that I've lived my life by were put into me then, as probably is the same with yourself with the the parachute regiment, the discipline, the never say die attitude, the confidence, and all the other factors that are in your nature that they bring out. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say they sort of bash you down to build you back up again. But I don't strictly believe that. I think, they work on the people, that they notice your strengths, they notice your weaknesses, and they work on the weaknesses to get you up to par. Because the last thing you want to do is just scrape through training, and then you're in a regiment or you're in a unit and you're the weakest link. And that was never going to be the case. So I did 20 weeks at Deal, and then we went down to Limpston to do the commando side of it. And I've got to be honest with you, it was hard, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the comradeship. I enjoyed the times when, you sat in a room and you're being beasted and this room's not tidy enough and all the stuff's going out the window and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it all. Well, I didn't enjoy that, but I learned something from it. I think, what did I learn? I learned that when I was in charge, that is not how I was going to be. I didn't want to be a person that people were scared of. Because I remember when I first got into the unit, if I saw a lance corporal coming down the other side of the road, I'd cross over just to keep out the way.
Scary
But obviously,
individuals, weren't they, back then? Yeah.
they were, and mini Hitlers, some of them, to be brutally honest with you, and a lot of them didn't progress because I think they had the wrong attitude. The good leaders eventually got to the top. But anyway, so I'm going away from it. So I joined up, and then I had a 22-year career in the Royal Marines, Northern Ireland. I went straight out to Cyprus in 1974 for the just on the back end of the invasion, and we did the UN tour. And 4-1 Commando in Malta, stayed out there, and we did a 6-month tour. And that was an eye-opener for a young lad who'd just joined up. So that was my initiation, straight into it. I've got lots of stories, and it's really strange because people sometimes look at you, especially civvies, and they go, "Where'd you get all these stories from, Jeff?" I said, "You do 22 years service, and you'll have a lot of stories as well." The stuff we used to get up to, a lot of it was X Factor, but it was fun. And yet, I mean, you had to have a good time because, it was so tough. The sacrifice, I don't think people understand the sacrifice that a serviceman gives, away from your family. I mean, that first year in 74, 75, the Christmas, New Year, it was my first year away from home. And I was in a war zone, thinking, this isn't what I expected, to be honest. And we were doing more of a police role, to be honest with you. But there we go. And then I did three full Northern Ireland tours. I did the Falklands War, which you know an awful lot about. Very proud of what we did there and what we achieved. Utmost respect for the paras. I'll get that in then to balance it back up. Because the way those guys, they were just a different beast. So brave and so proud, and they was never going to lose. And obviously, elite forces like the people that were down there, obviously the Royal Marines, that mentality won the day at the end of the day. And we were outnumbered in every battle we fought, and we won every one of them. So that just tells you what you need to know. I think we discussed it earlier. There was no reason. There was an obvious reason why they sent the Royal Marines and why they sent the paratroopers.
Well, the
because
people
they
forget
wanted to.
as well. I got to get in there. The people forget, obviously, the guards on Tumble as well. The guards,
Fantastic.
they had quite a tough time on
Yeah,
Tumbletown as well.
they did.
And obviously we talk, and I know what I try and I'm conscious of. Obviously, I know the Paras and the Marines fought tough battles down there, but I always try and highlight as well. Obviously the naval side of it,
Fantastic.
the attached arms and stuff, and everyone that
Yeah,
was down there had a rough time, didn't they? The Air Force,
they did. And that's why the Brotherhood is so strong, the Falklands Brotherhood, because there's an ultimate respect for everybody. The RAF, the naval ships. I had a brother-in-law, or got a brother-in-law, who was on Glamorgan when it got hit. The submarines that were down there, the Vulcan bombers that dropped the bombs on Stanley Airport and missed. The helicopter pilots, everybody. There was army units down there there was scimitars down there, as I remember. There was air defence down there. The gunners were fantastic with the support fire they put down in advance of attacks and to soften the enemy up. So overall, that was just a magnificent time for me, to be brutally honest with you. And then I came out. I did numerous Norways. I think I tried to work it out once. I think I did 12 Arctic Norways.
Wow, 12.
12 altogether. Yeah, I did four. I did four with 4-2, which was the first four, which was Andal's Nest. 4-5 used to go all the time, but then they decided that 4-2 we we're going to go. The first year we went out there, we went out as snowshoes, which was hilarious because all the 4-5 commando snow veterans were all skiing around, and we were on a pair of bleeding tennis rackets. And we had just normal GS kit. We didn't have any of the Arctic stuff or anything. I mean, we went out that first year with DMS boots and puttees to the Arctic.
Yeah, that's not
Then
ideal, is it?
no, it wasn't good. Our vehicles were all wheeled, so we couldn't go off the main roads, even though we did try it, but we always ended up getting bogged down within about a few seconds. So it was pretty tough those first couple of years, and then we got some BVs, the Bravo BV 202s, which are the over snow vehicles.
Yeah.
We got them. Went against all the Norwegians' advice because we couldn't afford a full batch. I think we only got 12 the first year, and we were sending them out singular. It was just mental because the Norwegians said you can't take them vehicles out into that terrain unless it's 2 minimum because of the recovery and stuff like this. But because we hadn't got them, all the companies each fighting company had one. Support company had a couple. I think anti-tanks and mortars had a couple, whatever the case may be, but it was ridiculous. We just hadn't got enough, and we were very lucky to survive that because we had a couple of very near misses where people could quite easily have frozen to death. And as the years went by, we got better and better. But so first of all, I did went to Bethheim, went up to Gardermoen with 4-5. Well, 4-5 didn't go that year, and we went up there. And then there was about 4 in Gardermoen. So they all add up. But I reckon it was either 12 or 13. And there were 3 months. So you used to come back from Christmas leave, and you literally gone straight away. So you went into January, sailed up there normally, and then we came back normally the end of March, just before Easter leave. But I was only thinking about it, is that we tried to work it out one day, how much time we spent away in the 22 years. And most years we spent in excess of 6 months away every year.
Yeah, it's a fair
Which again, when
statement.
people talk about sacrifice, missing your kids' birthdays, christenings, school reports, weddings, family deaths, and all that, people just don't take that into consideration when they think about joining up.
Yeah, so it's a fair point, actually, Jeff. You people don't, and you've just really, really reminded me about that because, again,
Yeah,
it's not something you think about. Everyone thinks about, we talk about the PTSD, we talk about the
yeah,
the kind of obviously the suicides and stuff that we have to sadly bring up and talk about because enough's not
yeah,
being done about it still, which we
no,
talked about earlier. But like people
yeah,
don't realize the kind of the impact of being a young, not the impact, it's the sacrifice you mean. I enjoyed it the
yes,
same as you. I was 17 when I
yeah,
joined, but that being away for years on end, I was in a very, very busy period of time, the late 90s, early 2000, when stuff started happening. And I was
yeah,
away. I did 6 operational tours in 7 years,
yeah,
so people don't realize how busy it was back then, and what like you say, exactly that, what veterans sacrificed, not just from going away to them places, but time away from loved ones and stuff. It's all part of it, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well, there was a stage where we were either coming back from operations or preparing for operations. It was seamless. You just went from one to the other. Bouncing between the Northern Ireland tours. I went out to New Hebrides when we had to go and recapture one of the islands over there. That was really interesting story, but I don't want to go into it now. But again, it just shows the sort of travelling we did. We travelled to the other side of the world, basically, to bring an island back under our control with 200 Royal Marines and 200 French paras who were Foreign Legion.
Two
Uh,
rep.
and that was really, I mean, they secured the airfield and we had to go in there. And at one stage, we were going to parachute in, which really peed the paras off because it would have been an operational jump. And they hadn't had an operational jump for a long time. If I remember, I think even the Second World War might have been mentioned. And we
56.
went,
I believe it was the Suez crisis in 56 or around
correct,
then.
that's
You'll
right.
get some
Yeah,
viewers that will literally be able to put me
yeah,
right, but I'm pretty sure the
no,
last operation jump was the Suez crisis, I think.
sure. But, it was just great to do that. Um, what else? I'll say the Falklands, we've touched on that briefly, but that was an eye opener, going down there as a corporal. And in fact, I was supposed to go on my sergeant's course, my seniors, and they said I couldn't go. No, the seniors is more important. I went, are you serious? I've got to go. You can't leave me behind. So I managed to eventually cause enough bloody nausea to get to go. But what it meant was when I come back from the Falklands, I got the first sergeant's course. So everybody else went on leave after the Falklands. I went straight down to Livingston
No
to go and
way.
do the first sergeant's course after the Falklands.
Oh, wow.
So that was really interesting because there were a lot of guys down there, a lot of Royal Marine, very professional trainers and stuff like. I'd done it all and seen it all. I'd missed out because the training had to carry on. And we got back, and the first thing they said to us, they fell us all in, and we're all stood there like, just come back from conflict, going to do a training course, and there's a strange feeling about it all. And the colour sergeant comes marching out, and we're all stood there to attention in troop format. And he turns around and he goes, right, you lot, let's get one thing clear from the start. I know you've just come back from the Falklands, and a great job you did, but we want no mention of it on this course. If you mention it, we're RTU you back to the unit. That's what they said. It was like, oh, cheers, mate. Because they were so miffed that they'd missed it. And I'll get that. Like I said, I was broken hearted when I thought I wasn't going to go. Everybody wanted to be there. Was people wanting to rejoin back up to go. I think it was the same in the Paris, to be fair. I mean, there would have been loads of guys that didn't go who, they'll never get over it, to be brutally honest. But there we go.
Yeah, it is. It's one of them. And like people, you will get people wondering why you want to go to war. And I've explained this
Yeah,
quite numerous times. It is like being trained in something and never get to using it for real. I liken it to being a firefighter. It's like going and doing all your
yeah,
fire training
yeah,
and then coming out and never attending a house fire. You want to
exactly.
do it. You know, and
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
work. Your probably one of your best days is someone else's nightmare. You know, you can imagine someone's
yeah,
house fire. You know,
yeah.
it's their worst day. It's a nightmare for them, but you're excited to do it, and it's a weird thing. You've got to have people like that, and it's the same, exactly the same in the military, isn't it? You know.
Completely. I use the analogy, it's like being a milkman and not delivering milk.
Yeah.
It's exactly it's just exactly the same. I mean, to me, I had to do it. It's all I ever wanted to do. In fact, what I used to do was exchange drafts with people so that I stayed in the commando units. Because that's all I wanted to do. I had opportunities to go and be trainer. I said, I don't want to be a trainer. I'll do my training in the commando units. That's where I want to be. I want to be on the tip of the spear, because you get the old phone call, oh, recall, you're back in the camp and you're gone, bang, see you later. You don't get that in the training. But to be fair, it actually cost me at the back end of my career, because they wanted me to have done the training side of it. And I might have had all this combat experience, all this amphibious warfare experience, logistical experience, blah, 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 my management experience under fire, blah, blah, blah. But when it came down to it, I hadn't got a tick in the box on the training side.
Yeah,
And I
that's
just,
you need to have done them courses, them training courses that translate. You can have
having
all the
it.
experience in the world, but you've not got a tick in the box. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, excuse.
Yeah. Well, like, if you don't mind, it's up to you. Like, feel free to tell me to do one. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I've heard a lot, obviously, from Power Age Falklands veterans. I've never
Yeah,
heard a side from Royal Marines, just because I don't sort of associate. I know lots of Royal Marines, but not many that have been down
no.
south. So,
Okay.
have you got any sort of, I don't want to delve into too much if it's too uncomfortable. Obviously, you know
No,
why I
that's
do the
fine, mate.
podcast
Totally.
for raising awareness for mental health, and I just want to touch on bits and bobs that you were involved in while you were down there, and then move on to see how it's affected you moving forward in your life. So yeah, if you can expand on your kind of part in that.
Okay, well, initially, we travelled down there on Canberra. One of the para regiments were on there with us as well, and off we went. And it was surreal, to be honest with you. We were recalled on the 2nd of April, I believe. So everybody thought it was a wind up. We were all on leave, and we get the call, get your ass back to camp. Now the thing was, back then, no mobile phones. If you everybody had a contact number, but it would be your home number, your landline. So obviously the balloon went up, and right, we need to get the unit back right now. But we're all on leave. Just got back from Norway. We were all over the world, to be honest with you. I heard the stories, people coming back from America on leave, on holiday with their families, and one thing and another. I was actually up in Coventry with my brother-in-law, who was in the Royal Marines as well. And we were on the piss, to be honest, with having a few beers in the dinner time sesh in his local boozer. And I think I had a Royal Marine t-shirt on or something, showing my biceps off and stuff like that, like you do. And next thing I know is this bloke come over and said, "Do you know Royal Marines, mate?" I went, "Yeah, why? Who told you?" And he went, "Have you heard the news?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "The Falklands have been invaded." Like, yeah, get out. Now the thing was, I'd always wanted that draft down to do the Falklands, but I never got selected for it. So I was always like, oh God, I'd love to go down there. And then all of a sudden, it kicked off. The Argentinians that come across, taking out the garrison, and we're seeing all these not so particularly good images of our guys being paraded around and stuff. So I drove. I'd been drinking all afternoon. I phoned up the unit and I said, "Is it right enough? We've been recalled." "Where the bloody hell are you? You need to be back here now. Get your ass back here now," type stuff. Sergeant Major going absolutely mental. So I jumped in my car with 6 points in me. With I don't encourage anybody to do that, but back then it was
No, back
an
then it was different. It was different back then. Yeah.
operational requirement. My wife knocked me up the world's biggest flask of neat coffee. It was just coffee in there and the water. And I was necking that down as I was driving down the road. And I knew it was a big problem because as soon as I got on the motorway from Birmingham, I went from Coventry to Birmingham, and then from Birmingham down to Plymouth, and all the way down was just convoy after convoy moving ammunition. Even at that stage, it was just like a mass convoy. And I thought, shit, this is real. We got back to the camp. We were told we were going the next day. So it was draw weapons, clean weapons, get your kit sorted out, kit musters, making sure everybody had the kit and everything was there. It was just chaos, but it was great chaos. It's that real nice buzz. We're going to war, and you better stand by when we get there. It was great. And then we got on. We got on coach next day, and we drove down to the docks at Southampton, and we pulled up outside. We looked at this big white boat, and it was like, "Are we going on that?" I thought we was going on a warship. No, we're going on that. You ain't getting me on there. What a target! Just a white cruise liner. I thought, oh, this is mad. So anyway, what I'd done was one of my friends had been on the advance party down there, and I said to him, "Do me a favour, mate." He said, "What's that?" I said, "You owe me a couple of favours, don't you?" He went, yeah, Jeff, what do you want? I said, "Get me a decent room, will you? Get me a decent," we call it a grot in the Marines, I don't know what you call it. I said, "Get me a decent grot." So he did. Well, when I got down there, to be honest, I've never told anybody this, but I had a better room than some of the officers. It was brilliant. And then we were travelling, but nobody believed for any minute. You know, the vibe was we would turn around when we got to Ascension. We got to Ascension, we didn't turn round. We got off and we did a speed march. We trained every day on the ship, running around. We must have run around that ship 10,000 times, I reckon. Every single day, running, speed marching, unarmed combat, physical exercise, firing the weapons off the back of the ship, and all the prep you would probably do prior to any sort of deployment, but we had to do it on a board ship. The Paras found it really difficult, again, because they weren't used to being seaborne.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting. A lot of them were very concerned about the landing craft assault, having never done it really. And I remember when we got down there, the seas were horrendous on the landing crafts, and we had to scale down the side of the Canberra with all our kit on. And my Bergen, I was quite a strong lad. I could hardly lift it up. It was that much stuff in it. I had all my own kit. I had a load of stuff for the helicopter landing marshalling team. I was the NBC instructor as well, so I had a lot of NBC kit. It was just ridiculous. And I must admit, climbing down the side of that ship on the rope, and the landing craft was going up and down like this, and you had to catch it, and then you drop, and the guys would catch you and bung in a corner. It was mad. And then when we went ashore, I mean, the para guys especially got, well, what do we do now? Well, when the ramp comes down, we go out troops, and you run out into the sea, and you charge up the beach, and I'm going, bloody hell, we're used to a door opening and piling out troops, jump out of bleeding serviceable aircraft. So they were quite worried about it, to be honest. But actually, there was no need. They'd fine. And then when we got on the ground, we all dug in round the beachhead to protect the beachhead initially. And we were right next to the paras there as well. We were all one at the end of the day. We were still units, but I think 2 para were on our left. I think 40 were on our right, and 40 were in the middle. And we all started digging up on this hillside. And I see this guy. He was the world's biggest bloke, paratrooper. He was absolutely massive. And he said, no, it was after a couple of days, sorry, it'd been pouring a rain. It was bloody awful there. Honestly, the weather was just, that was probably the worst part of it. Besides the terrain, the weather was horrendous. And it was like the worst day on Dartmoor, or, up in the Welsh mountains or whatever. It was just pouring down. It was freezing cold. Everybody was miffed off, excited, but just piss wet through.
Yeah.
And I was digging a trench. There's two of us digging this trench, trying to get this trench knocked up. And this padder guy goes, "How comes your feet are so dry?" And I had, what I'd done was I put my NBC boots on because they were waterproof. My DMS
rubber, aren't
boots
they?
were just absolutely, utterly piss wet through. And the para lad's boots were exactly the same. I actually gave him my spare boots at the back of my Bergen and I said, put them on. And I don't know if this is commonly known, but you might be able to find out the names of these lads. But on one evening, I was on watch, and one of the guys said, "We've got two guys moving to the front of our location. They're definitely British. I've just seen them coming from our lines." And it was two young lads, two young paras. I'd run down to the local. There was like a hut at the bottom of our forward position with the locals in, and climbed in the bloody window to some young bird who'd been walking around during the afternoon giving out soup from a pail, you know, the old tin pails, that was full of soup, which her and the mum had made. Well, there was about three young girls. They were probably about 16 to 18 or whatever. But when you've been cooped on a ship, don't know what they looked like. They were essence as far as we were concerned. But these two guys moved in, and they made their way down, and they climbed through the window and they took the boots off. So two of my guys nipped down, stole the boots, and ran off. And brought the boots back to our line. So when they come out the bedroom, eventually out the window, the boots weren't there, and you could hear them going, "Where the fuck's my boots? Where's my boots?" Going mad. So when they come back up, we give them their boots back. But you know, stuff like that was going. There was loads of banter, and I think when when you're in a conflict, that dark humour and stuff so important. Civvies don't get it, and certainly the woke people of today would never get it. But we spent most of the time winding each other up and having a laugh, giggling ourselves to sleep sometimes with some of the
It's got to be
stories
done.
that came out.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done. It's been like that as long as you can remember, and it's what
Yeah,
spurs the other one on. You know.
definitely, definitely. And then obviously during the conflicts and that, initially we were getting bombed to pieces. The Argentinians knew where we were. They'd all vacated as quickly as they could once they see all the boys coming ashore. We had some air cover in the Harriers, but they had freedom to come and hit us. In fact, I'll just go back to when we came ashore. On the first day, while we were waiting to go ashore, the Argentinians attacked us, and we were in Bomb Alley, as they called it. There were several boats in there, several naval ships, getting absolutely hammered. And there was us with a whole regiment, you call them that, yeah, unit anyway, and 4-2 Commando, all sat in the ballroom on their kit, waiting to move ashore. And there was a senior naval officer on board, and he was giving us a running commentary, and it went something like this: air red, air red. 5 enemy aircrafts heading from the southeast, or whatever it was, 10 miles out, 9 miles out, and starts the countdown. 2 miles out, 1 mile. I can see them. I can see them. Oh my God, that was close. And you're sitting on this boat saying, "Get me off this bloody ship, please."
I
So
bet.
my admiration for sailors who were stuck on there while that was all going on, and the way that they took the enemy fire, because they'd only, if they actually attacked the Canberra, they would have stopped it there and then. We would have had to send for reinforcements.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't have carried on the fight with 2 units out of the, how many units were down there initially? 2, 3 units from us and 2 from you, so 5 units, and 2 or 3 of them would have been wiped out in one blow. That's how
Yeah.
close. And I always say it could have gone either way. But once we got ashore, then you saw the qualities, the never say die attitude, the invincible spirit. I had a lot of people say to me about, about the conflict side of it, and I said, look, this is how I've had to come to terms with it over the years. I've got an element of guilt like most servicemen have. I've been diagnosed with what they call it now, guilt syndrome or whatever it's called, and because you always think you could have done better, you always blame yourself for the people that don't make it. Is there something I could have done? Why wasn't I there? And how many times have you heard the story where that guy wasn't even supposed to be on that patrol and he got blown up? Or, it's just ridiculous how it goes, but it happens too often. And I said to the guys, I said, look, I'm not suicidal, but I trust you 100%. I trust the bloke on my right, and I trust the bloke on the left, and that's the perks of having a green beret, and that's the perks of having a maroon beret, because them blokes ain't going to let you down, whatever happens. And I said, I'm not suicidal, but this is how I deal with it. I think of any combat situation, one-on-one, which a lot of people haven't experienced a war as such, because obviously Afghanistan was more like a terrorist war, to be honest with you. Iraq was more like a war. You got the tanks there, you got the enemy there. They're over there, go and get them, lads, type mentality. But I used to say, I always see myself as the star in the movie, and the camera's on me, and I am not going to get killed, because the star never dies, does he, really? So whatever happens, and if it does happen, it happens. But I'm going to go down with style, and I never believed for 1 minute I was going to get killed. I never come into my head ever, and it never come into my head that any of my men were going to die either, because that's how it was. But the Falklands definitely tested us, tested everybody down there. It was an unbelievable achievement when you look back on it. Like I say, we threw the tactics book out the window. I mean, as I moved up the ranks, and say when you're a WO2 and you discuss tactics and stuff like this, and how would you deal with this, and how would you deal with that, I used to think to myself in the back of my mind, when it comes down to it, it goes out the window, because the book says you should never take on a force that you're not 3 times bigger. So to take on a section, you'd need a troop.
Yeah.
To take on a troop, you need a company. To take on a company, you'd need a unit. Blah blah blah, all the way up. But that never happened once that I'm aware of. It was always, oh, we've taken 1,000 prisoners. We've taken this amount of prisoners. And when we marched them all up at the end of the war onto the airfield to de-arm them, I couldn't believe how many there was. Bloody thousands of them. Were everywhere. I don't think you could have, the amount of weapons we took off them, if they'd been firing every one of them, we'd have took a lot of casualties. If they'd fought to the last man, we'd be having a different story now, I'm sure. The amount of people we would have lost. But we didn't, thank goodness. And I want to mention the paras as well, because I work up, on a Monday, I work up at the National Memorial Arboretum as a volunteer. And I meet a lot of people, especially in the Falklands corner, they call it, which is the Falklands Memorial, and up on the main wall where all the Afghan boys are and all the Iraqi lads and all the rest of it. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but some of the units, and the paras is one, they send their trainees down to the Arboretum to learn a little bit about their history.
All right, okay.
And I was down there, and again, just an observation, but it's the same with all servicemen, and I'm sure we were exactly the same. Couldn't look me in the eye, because I just look like a civvy. They're very much in their little group, and that's all that's important. And I get that, because you nurture that anyway. That's what you want. But they were walking around with this group that walk them around and show them the Para Memorial, for example, Pegasus, which is absolutely beautiful. If you ever get the chance to go, you've got to see it. It's probably the most impressive monument there. And they're walking around, and then they came to the Falklands one, and the guy started talking about the Falklands, and I was listening to him, and then he turned around and he said, "Oh, by the way, lads, this is Jeff Williams. This is Jeff. He served in the Falklands," and they all looked at me as if to go, Really? I went, yeah. Oh, you don't look old enough. Oh, thanks, mate. Um, I said, yeah, I did. Trust me. I've got the scars to prove it, both physically and mentally. And the guy had given a synopsis of Goose Green. And I turned around and I went, he said, well, what do you think, Jeff? And I said, yeah, that was very good and very accurate. I said, but you missed out so much. I said, for these young lads, they need to understand the footprints that they're treading in, the history of their predecessors, the likes of yourself and the generation before you as well, probably, and the generation from the Second World War, or Arnhem and all the rest of it. I don't think sometimes you realise as a youngster. And I said, I'd like to just elaborate a little bit more on that. He said, yeah, dig out. What do you want to say then? I said, well, you mentioned Goose Green and the difference in numbers and how, you lost so many guys and it was never say die. It was 2 days fighting non-stop virtually or something like that. Anyway, I can't remember exactly. It's a long time ago now. But I said, what you haven't mentioned is how did the Paras get down there? Do you know they walked along roads that hadn't been cleared? There'd been nobody along them, the route they took. It was minefields there. They were under constant threat of air attack. It was pissing down the rain. They were carrying enormous loads. And then when they did all that, and again, you might remember when people used to say when you're doing your speed marches in training, yeah, you're doing your 9 mile or whatever, your tab or whatever, and you get to the enemy, and then you've got to go and fight. But that doesn't register. You're going to have to now go and fight. Well, them guys went and fought for 2 days, through the night, constantly attacking, probing, and eventually overwhelm the enemy. I said, you've got to bring all that into it because that's, it's not just saying, well, we went to Goose Green and we did this and we did that. No, they got down there. The numbers of casualties they took was horrendous. Your mate's been shot and you got to leave him behind because you've got to keep moving forward. It was just madness. Blokes fighting hand to hand in the trenches, guys surrendering and then picking up the weapon and firing and stuff like that. It was a lot of things that happened in the Falklands never ever come out because we laughed about it when we got back on the Canberra. We saw some of the reports from the local papers, from the Sun and all the rest of it, because all we used to ever read was the Sun and the Mirror. That was about it. Nobody read the Telegraph unless they were a sergeant or above. And we're reading the Sun, and we're reading the reports on some of the battles, and they were just awful because nobody was up front with us. We wouldn't take any reporters with us. And it was the time before mobile phones, so there was nobody videoing anything or whatever. There's no pictures of the hand-to-hand combat and all that stuff. It's just nothing because it didn't exist because nobody was allowed. We just would not take them with us. It's too dangerous. You don't want a guy sticking up to take a picture in the middle of a firefight. It's just ridiculous. So that never happened. And when I got back from the Falklands, we were all amazed at the reception we got. Nobody expected that. We just thought we were coming back from exercise. Coaches turn up, take you back to camp, and that's that. To see all the families and that was just amazing. And the response of the nation to what we'd actually achieved was just, I'll never forget it. I'm not a person. I'm not a proud person. That's not fair. It's not what I want to say, but it's not about the praise and all the rest of it. It's just knowing that you did the best you possibly can. I'm not worried about you did this, you did that. It doesn't matter. If you were there, you'd have done exactly the same. That's the way I look at it. We're all one in that environment. And one of the things I've tried to do since I got back from the Falklands is build a community. And I know you're massive on it yourself. I want to build a community, and I've wanted to build a community for a long time, and I've been working on it tirelessly to build a community where veterans and military look after veterans and military people. Because there'll be civvies watching this going, yeah, I love the military and all that sort of stuff. Well, they're very few and far between, because if there were more civilians out there that cared as much as they would like to think, then we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in with regards to the failings that we've had since we come back from conflict, i.e. the mental health, i.e. the homelessness, the way that, you go to America and it's thank you for your service and, do you want to be a mate type stuff. That doesn't exist here for some
No.
reason.
I've said
But
that multiple times, Jeff, about like you go over abroad and it's the same military veterans, firefighters again abroad.
yeah,
You're literally kind of, oh, thank you for your service. We'll buy
yeah,
you,
but you see it,
you know,
don't you?
yeah, they do, and you get to the
Yeah,
front. I'm not saying that's necessarily with everything, but it's nice to have that recognition of what you've put on the line. And I know you will get civilians criticizing that and going, well, you signed up for it. We did
yeah,
sign up for it because we wanted
yeah,
to defend the country,
yeah.
but we also expect a bit of fair treatment. We're not expecting a lot, we're just expecting a bit of looking after. And I know I am a big advocate for veterans. I have been for a number of years, but I know you've devoted so many years to tiresome devotion to try and sort of make differences, and you've been faced with kind of constant brick walls, haven't you?
A lot. Well, I've got a few statements there, Chris, because we can go on to mental health now, because obviously that's been a passion of mine now for just under 10 years. Before that, it was the Free L, which I mentioned, Free Marine A campaign. And then before that, while I was working, it was getting jobs for veterans and transforming their CVs from military into civvy, getting companies interested in the qualities that veteran possesses, the discipline, hard working ethic, the trustworthiness, and all that type of stuff. I worked in recruitment, I worked in civilian recruitment, and I just was a great advocate that, look, you need to look at the veterans community. There's a lot of guys out there that are leaving. The transition from military to civvy is poor. No two ways about that. They're coming out not prepared. They're not always given the right information because they've been given information by people who have not gone through the process because they're still in.
Yeah.
They don't understand that, when you leave, so much changes so quickly, it's a shock. And if you're leaving with mental health issues as well, even like simple tasks like finding yourself a home, finding yourself somewhere for your kids to go to school, and all the rest of it, it's a shock. And if you're not, some people find it quite easy. More people find it quite difficult.
Yeah.
So I've lost my train of thought now. But
No. It's
what,
funny. It is. You're right. The transition there is difficult, and the only people that can help someone transition from the military to civilian is people that have been through it. You're completely right. I've
yeah,
never looked at it like that because that first 6 months or that first year, I say it all the time. You're not surrounded by that support network of the
oh,
blokes that look after you, that you live with, that you kind of socialize with, that you do fizz with, that you go and live in a hole in the middle of Brecon with, or you go on
yeah,
ops with. So when
exactly.
you come out, you're lost, and you're very soon you're on your own. So it
Yeah,
is a big thing about the transition from from military to civilian, isn't it?
it is massive. Because I've pushed against the system because I don't believe in the system, if I'm brutally honest with you. I've had too many examples where I've been let down, where I've been lied to and deceived by quite highfalutin people in the military world, but also in the political world. And one thing's become very clear to me, and I want to pass this out to people because it's the truth, and it's my reality, and it's my experience, and that is that the system protects the system. The system protects the machine, as we call it in the Marines. We call it the military is the military machine, and the system protects that. That's why your COs can't really tell people what's going on, because if they don't toe the line, then they're gone, or they don't get the medal, or whatever the case may be. their future career is tarnished in some way. And until we start embracing the truth, i.e., for example, the amount of people that are committing suicide, and as I said to you the other day, what if I can go back to Veterans United Against Suicide? I founded that in 2017. When I started it, people went, "Who's the problem?" I had people saying, "Don't do it, Jeff. It's a toxic subject," and it is a toxic subject. You will not get any knowledge from it because people will just say it's not happening. And I used to say to people, I said it yesterday. The thing that is most poignant to me, having done 22 years military service, having come out, having had to, I had cancer, I had to get over that, and all these obstacles thrown in my way. But I felt that I forgot what I was going to say. This is part of the PTSD stuff coming in again, because your mind just moves all over the place. I forgot what I was going to say. Just remind me what I just said, Chris. Sorry, I've just lost
No. You
train of
just on
thought.
about, like, my brain does exactly the same, buddy. My brain goes off at tangents and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, you were just kind of on about the whole sort of the system, the machine, and the protection of that, and then is that where you were going with it?
Yeah, there was a comment I was going to say. Let's just leave it. I'll come back to it. Honestly, it'll drop back in there. But I've just found this defence of the indefensible. The suicide. We're going to sort it. No, sorry. What I was going to say, here we go, was when I joined up, I did 22 years service. I never saw one suicide. People need to embrace that. 22 years service, and I never saw one suicide. And at the moment, we're losing on average one a week. What has fundamentally changed in that time? Something has changed. And I don't know what it is, because we used to still go to conflicts. We still had problems. People had nothing. I was only saying to my grandchildren the other day, you don't know how lucky you are with what the stuff you've got. We never had a car when I was a kid. Every one of my grandkids now has got a car. We never had our own house. We had a council house.
Yeah.
We all wore the same shoes, not same shoes, but we all had the same uniform. The shoes were the same, the socks were the same, the shorts were the same, the shirt was the same. It was just like we're all cloned exactly the same. Now, if you don't wear top-notch stuff, designer labels and stuff, something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It was all that. Things have changed. Something has changed for the worst. And the duty of care from the military needs to improve. I get it. I've been in it. I've been the other end of it, and I get it. The unit's responsibility is training up a unit that can fight and do the business. They don't want all of the side effects, but they need to build a structure that if the unit don't do it, somebody else has got to be doing it. Somebody's got to be, we've got to be educating these lads. What are the signs? Because this was something else I was thinking about only the other night. I thought that was normal, feeling the way I did. I never knew whether I was going to be alive or dead the next day. I lived my life to the full. I went out, got tanked up every night, did all the things that young lads do. Because I didn't know. And I look back at it now and I think, I wish I had my head now and I could go back and guide that young Jeff, or young Chris, in the right, probably in a better direction, so that I didn't have the mental health hang-ups that I've got. And I think the problem with mental health is, if you've got a caring nature, it seems to affect you more because you're exposing yourself to more. You're taking on other people's problems. You're putting your arm around. I can't remember any of my guys. I talked them around when they were in a right mess. Financial. I wrote down earlier. When people say to me about suicide, what are the main reasons? And I said, well, that's a really difficult question, because with suicide, it's very complex.
Yeah.
And there's a multitude of reasons why somebody takes their own life. But they do fall into certain categories. And I wrote them down earlier, so I'm going to put my glasses on if you don't mind. They're in no particular order, but I'll tell you which is the most favourite one afterwards. This is a 10 years gathering statistics, talking to families, talking to guys who have attempted suicide, talking to families that of their children, their wives, their mums and dads, trying to help and support, because they're always left with the question, why? And they blame themselves straight away. And 9 times out of 10, it's got nothing to do with that. I mean, you can join the military with mental health hang-ups and still have a successful career.
Yeah.
Certainly when I joined up, they recruited from a certain demographic, and that was poorer people. I look at the guys who are going through training now, they're far more intelligent than we were. So I don't know whether they've moved the goalpost there a little bit, but I would say they have. But transition to Civvy Street, like you said earlier, you know, when they come in and all of a sudden, I don't know how to do any of this. And all of a sudden, you're not a big para. And your missus don't see you as a big para now. She sees this guy who's quite vulnerable, thinking, Christ now, trying to juggle all these balls at once, thinking, you know, what do I do? Massive one, and this is probably number one, to be fair. What do you reckon it is? What do you reckon?
Not being surrounded by the support network.
Relationship breakdown.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's number one normally. That's the one where the missus has left me for somebody else, you know, just a million things. But because you're stressing, you might have mental health, you might have PTSD, you're getting angry, you're drinking too much, you're knocking the old drugs down your head, punching people's lights out when they look at you. The missus goes, hang on, this isn't the bloke I married. You know you're damaged, she knows you're damaged, and all of a sudden you drift apart because she can't cope with it herself. And a lot of women and men, talking about the women that are serving, when they come back from conflict, they see a difference. And the problem is, you come into their world, they've had to survive without you. And I always use this example as well. I remember coming home from I probably was from the Falklands actually, and the missus has got this routine. Right, we watch Coronation Street, we watch EastEnders, we watch this. Hang on, you can't do that. I want to watch football. Oh, you can't do that. You know, the kids watch this then because they've got their system that they've had to develop to survive because you're not there.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you come in, you know, you're giving them a hard time. Oh, I ain't having, I'm going down the pub. I'm going out with the lads. Well, bollocks to this. And off they go. And the relationship starts fracturing. And it's a very strong woman or man that can hold it together when that starts fizzing up a bit. Because they're not in any frame of mind to compromise. If they've come back from a war, for example, you know, the last thing you want to be doing is riding with your missus when you get back. And that causes a lot of stress because when you speak to guys who have tried to commit suicide or guys pre-suicide, there's a common thing that they say. And every time I hear this, I jump straight down the neck. They come out and they say, the world would be better without me. My family would be better without me.
Yeah.
I'm worthless. You know, these people were superhuman. And all of a sudden they've got so low that they're saying stuff like that. And that hurts me. I've got to say, it really pulls at my soul. So relationship breakup is definitely up there. Drink and drugs. I mean, especially when I was in, there was a massive drinking culture. I believe it's not as bad now. I think they're more on protein shakes and.
I hear that. I hear the drinking culture is not a thing as it was, and that's we joke about it and go, oh, it's not the same, but it's probably a good thing that it's not, because you'll probably remember I had this conversation recently with someone and said, you know, you used to see the old social hand grenades and joke about it, the people that used to go out and kick off and end up in a mess. They were probably struggling They were really struggling, but you
Yeah,
just thought, well, they're
definitely.
coping with it. That's just who they are.
Yeah,
You know, the people that you used to go, oh, he's a bit of a lad, a bit of a legend, he's a bit of a
yeah,
red.
yeah.
And
Struggling.
it's not normal,
One of
you
the
know.
signs. It's one of
Yeah,
the signs. And like I said to you earlier, and I thought that was normal. I just thought that's what you did.
yeah,
You know, you get pissed every night.
yeah,
You know, you just act a fool. You mask it. You know, oh, Jeff is great lad. He is. I'm actually struggling. And I can remember waking up in the middle of the night, fighting. You know, and Mrs. go, what's wrong with you? I wanted to strangle somebody. I wake up some mornings, I could strangle somebody because my dreams are so vivid.
yeah,
I've had treatment for it and all sorts because that's why I can talk about it. I've been through the process. I get it. And I thought it was normal. And most people I speak to say they think it was normal. Another reason is finance. No money. Come out. No job. No money. Times are hard. Have to wait forever for your pension to come through. You know, I spoke to a guy at the Arboretum, not Monday, the Monday before, and he was talking about the first trip down to the job centre, having done 22 years service and standing in the queue with all these scallywags who were just talking about how to defraud the system and how to get away with it. And
yeah.
he's standing in this queue going, oh my God, you know, what have I done? Can I get back in? You know, it was mad. But I've been there. I stood in that job queue and I said, what am I doing here? But I was advised that's what you got to do. You got to go and sign on. That was so demoralising, so degrading for a proud person. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I found that very, very difficult. And again, that's something we could prepare people for because that is how you're going to feel.
Of course it is. Of
The
course it is.
system makes you feel that way.
Yeah, it does, and you're right there. It's about just like educating people because I remember you go on. There's no really. I don't know if there is anymore. There probably isn't, but like a transitional course from the military to civilian life because like no one teaches you when you're in the military. Like you're very good at being self-sufficient in Brecon, Otterburn, foreign countries where you've got nothing and surviving. With bare minimum for long lengths of time, snow, ice, hot sunshine, you name it. Very adaptable. But you send us out into Civvy Street and tell us we've got to pay our bills and we've got to look after our own finances and stuff like that. You're not prepared for it. And I know that
No,
sounds really kind of, you mollycoddled.
it's
It's
true.
not. Everything's done like that from the military so you can focus on being the best soldier you can be. So
Exactly.
suddenly, so there is no transition courses out there that even now with the military that you know of.
There are groups talking about setting them up and producing a booklet with all the do's and don'ts because that's what needs to happen. Right, there's a booklet with every phone number you're going to need, everything you're entitled to. You know, it wouldn't be difficult to organise, and I think some units probably do that. But it depends. You know, it's a postcode lottery at the end of the day. And I say these guys are coming out, and they're not prepared for the stuff that they encounter when they get the other end, which then adds to the next point, which is stress.
Yeah.
You know, the stress gets to you, and then you got after that manifests into guilt, loneliness, and a sense of worthlessness. And if you bag all that up, you've got something I think that tells you about the mental health for servicemen that come out post active service. Not all of them. Some of them deal with it really, really well, and that's what I keep getting mentioned. I said, yeah, but they don't die. Those people are not dying. The people that are dying are the people that are struggling. And we need a safety net out there. We need to be capturing these people. I sent you the figures earlier on, Chris, but let me just go through the figures for you because there was a survey done by Johnny Mercer. Now, Johnny Mercer did an awful lot of good stuff, but like everybody else, his hands was tied behind his back. There's not a will to help the veterans. There's a will to keep you at arm's length. They do not want to help you. And I can say that firsthand because I've sent in excess of 20, 30 letters to them, and I get generic letters back that don't even answer the question. Jim Wilder used to work with me. He'll tell you exactly the same. You know, they just don't want to know. They don't want to admit there's a problem, because then they've got a problem to solve.
Well, they got to pay.
Um,
That's the problem. These
well,
things cost money, and
yeah,
we said earlier. Like, I know you're probably going to come on. I'm not trying to jump ahead,
yeah,
but
no,
we
no,
talked about earlier. It's like you bring up the migrant crisis, and you know
yeah,
you're bringing in
you're a racist.
hundreds and thousands of migrants that are being moved into hotels. You
Yeah,
bring up that, you are deemed racist. But what is
yeah,
wrong with sat here and saying, you said that this idea was brought up years and years ago about housing homeless veterans in hotels, and it was
yeah,
told it would be too expensive. So
exactly.
we can't look after our own veterans,
No,
right? That have been and served our country and are struggling,
yeah,
but we can bring in people from foreign countries that bring no benefit or have done nothing for our country. I know you can argue the refugees, some of them, and have come from war-torn countries, and I get that. We are a very open company like that, but
yeah,
it's got to be our veterans first, has it not?
completely. You know, when we first raised it, we were laughed at. We asked for two things. We asked for a hotel for veterans. They went, the money's not available. And that's farcical now when you think that they've got in excess of 500 hotels available. Also, again, I'm not picking on Johnny Mercer, but he was in a position of authority that he could have sorted out some of these problems. He made some idle boasts, but people forget about it because it's like another problem takes over. And you know, I think part of their strategy is that we've got a short retention span. I'm not blessed with a short retention span. I remember him saying clearly there will be no homeless veterans by Christmas. He made that
Yeah,
statement. If people want to Google it, it's out there. We've still got homeless, and that was 3 years ago. Okay, so that was just an idle boast to shut you up, push you away, as they always do. You're a veteran, you're relatively disciplined. Just, just you know, keep them at arm's length, keep them away from us. And that's what was going on. That's the truth of the matter. Um, what I wanted to do originally, and again, it's farcical when you think about where we are today. I said this: we need a camp. Give us a camp. Run it on a military basis with people that are going outside. So what happens is you transition from military to civilian. And the process of this camp is to do that because, again, this is key. It takes them years to make a good paratrooper or a good Royal Marine or a good Army boy or whatever, a serviceman. You nearly do a year training and then you don't know what end, you know, you don't know how to wipe your ass really. You've got to do some conflict and some conflict. You've got to do some deployments. You've got to go through the routine. You've got to get settled. Takes years. I mean, some of my Marines were not the best they could be for about 6 years on average before you could think that guy knows his stuff now. I don't have to make sure he knows everything. He knows exactly what he's doing.
I'd
And that
agree with that.
varied. I mean,
I
it could
would
be,
agree with that.
you know,
Yeah,
you know, but they don't give you 6 years to turn you back into a civvy. They don't
no.
give you 6 minutes. So why? How can you expect to train somebody to a trained killer and it take all that away and the stress and the hurt and the demons, take it away from them and just send them straight out into Civvy Street. And what I suggested was we had a camp. We called it Camp Sanctuary, and that meant that anyone in the UK that was down on his luck, veteran-wise, could make his way to that camp. He would never be homeless. There would always be a bed there. Just one camp or one hotel, and just say, you know, agencies like charity, no, we're not a charity, but awareness groups like myself could just turn around and say, right, ring us. What's the problem? I've been thrown out. I've had a guy today contact me saying, Jeff, we're being bullied out of our house. That's what he said. I've got it on my phone now. I was dealing with it this afternoon. So those type of people would go to this camp and they'd have a clean bed and they'd be able to do a regain. And we'd have companies coming into this camp saying, right, okay, where's your good veterans then? Well, there's your engineers, you know, there's your electricians. These guys are trained on brickwork, whatever. And we would get them out to work. So there'd be this middle ground. No, can't do it. Impossible. Oh, don't make me laugh, Jeff.
How is that impossible? Surely, because I think Billy Billingham touched on this as well. Because you could employ, because there's a lot of veterans trying to find work as well. You know, you could employ veterans in there to kind of run the place, to be involved in training roles. You know, like with qualifications, and
They'd look after it themselves, mate, wouldn't they?
of course, yeah, of course they would. But you could, it's a no-brainer in my opinion, especially when they
Yep.
can find money for God knows how many hotels for migrants. It's just, I don't understand it. I don't know what we have. It's almost you're cursed after you've served in the military, or you're
Yep.
literally thought, right, you've served in the military, you've signed on that line, you've fought for your country, you've done what's asked of you by these idiots in Whitehall and in you know, Westminster and whatever, yeah? And I will say that because they are, majority are idiots, and then when you do that, you're then like shit on the shoe to them. What is that about? I can't grasp
Don't
it.
get it.
And it's no wonder they can't get people to join the military nowadays.
No.
I still think it's a good job, but at the same time, you know, it's ridiculous how they're treated. And I'm not talking about. I am an advocate for people joining the military because, again, of what it's given me as when it comes to life skills, like what we talked about at the start, Jeff, you know,
Yeah.
and how it's sort of molded me as everything I do in life, I refer to that period of time in basic training and stuff like that. So it is good in that aspect, but something needs to improve when you leave, doesn't it?
Definitely, it's wrong. It needs addressing. The suicide figures are not going to go down until stuff's sorted. You know, there was no plan B for the guys coming back from Afghanistan, but I don't think there was any plan B for any conflict ever.
No.
There needed to be a plan B. We're supposed to be evolving and being more intelligent and more experienced from our experiences, but we should not have come back from Afghanistan, our lads, and not have a mental health provision or plan. The plan was for the NHS to take that responsibility on. An overstretched NHS already, and there are some real good NHS regions. It's a postcode lottery though. You go to one region, you'll get treated really well as a veteran. You go to another, you get nothing.
Yeah.
And that was their plan. We'll hand it over to the NHS. And again, because I was doing veteran suicide, I spoke to a mental health nurse. I spoke to an NHS mental health doctor. And they said, we're blowing out of our arse, Jeff. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we saw 5 a day. He said, we're seeing 20 a day now. You know, they all merge into one. You know, the system doesn't catch up with itself. They get seen off with regards to the next appointment. And if you're struggling with mental health issues, the last thing you want to do is, we'll see you in 6 months. No, I don't need I haven't got I won't be here 6 months' time.
That's the problem.
You know, I need action now. You need to sort me out now. Oh, we'll give you 10 days, but then you'll be better. They don't say that. Just say you've had your quota. You ask how many lads out there that resonates to. Oh, you've had your 10 days, you've had your 20 sessions or whatever. You're finished now, you're clear. No, you're not. You know, we need to look at it in a far more detailed, far more serious, because the guys don't believe it. Because if they did believe it, they wouldn't leave the trauma behind of a devastated wife, a devastated children. And I've got examples where the children have found their dad dead.
Yeah.
You know, let that sink in. And you know what the child said? Did Daddy kill himself because I was naughty? How does that child ever get over that?
Yeah. But you're causing a generational thing here as well. It's the knock-on effect as well, isn't it?
They're more. I don't know the exact percentage. I don't like talking about stuff I don't know about, but it's a very high percentage of that child will commit suicide if a parent commits suicide.
Wow.
It's a fact. You're just giving the burden to your family and saying, I'm out, you deal with it.
Yeah.
I deal with families that are in that boat. I deal with, we've helped support children. Scotty Little Soldiers, for example, they do it. There's lots of things being done, but it's fragmented all over the place. And that's really, if we're going to get serious about it, it needs to be spoken about, and there needs to be a will, and there needs to be a plan that is achievable. Because there's no point, and this is what happens all the time with the veterans, they tell you one thing and they never follow it through. Never. I can't give you one example where they've said they'll do something and then they follow it through.
Yeah.
It starts and then it just fizzles away. Johnny Mercer organised a mental health. Well, let's put it this way. When we first contacted Johnny Mercer about the figures, he gave us figures that were nowhere near the true reflection. He gave us a figure. Let's just use the example now. I can't remember what it was exactly. Say 5. He said, we've lost 5 people this year. I said, no, Johnny, we've lost 55 people this year. And he goes, nah, that's not true. He said, I've got the statistics here. I went, well, where'd you get the statistics from? He said, from the military. I said, well, tell me what they are. So he named the people. And I went, those are the 5 serving that have died this year. You've not mentioned one veteran. He went, well, we don't. And this is what really knocked me off my feet. We don't record veteran suicides. Well, how can you be aware of the problem when you don't even record veteran suicide? It's madness. I said that there's 50. And in fact, on the averages over the years, I mean, we've lost, since we started recording in 2018, or 2017, sorry, we've lost 558 men.
Fucking hell.
550, bigger than a unit, gone. Right? On the first year, 91. Second year, 83. Next year, 95. And the ratio between the veterans and the serving, we were losing 1 serving to every 5 veterans on average.
Wow.
So for every guy that serving died, we lost 5 veterans. 99% of men, varying ages, varying conflicts. But we have noticed it's got younger recently. Seems to be a lot more younger lads died. And some of them haven't seen any conflict. Because what you get is it becomes trendy. And what I've found is people are sanitised against it now. When I first started, we'd have something like 2,000 shares. Oh my God, we lost somebody. Nobody even blinks an eyelid now.
No, I've noticed that. People become like you're right. They become almost blasé with it because it's such a common thing. It's like, oh, another veteran's killed himself. It's not shocking them anymore. But look, you could go into a whole minefield of seeing people have been desensitized due to social media because suddenly someone's shot or assassinated. It's all over the internet, so people see it. You become desensitized to it. It's not suddenly not that graphic or not that shocking because of what they see. So that might have something to do with it. But you're right. It just people are totally blasé with it now. It's just like the norm, isn't it?
Just it's a byproduct now of military life. So many guys think that they've got PTSD and they haven't. They're just a bit depressed, a bit down.
Yeah.
But it's just a go-to now. Oh, I've got PTSD. No, you haven't got PTSD, mate.
It's an interesting topic as well, because I'm a big advocate for mental health, as we know. I try and raise that awareness amongst the veterans and emergency services as well because of what they face with. But you're right in what you say there. It's like it's kind of, I don't know. It's a hard way to put it. That for every one case that is legitimate, there's probably maybe 10 that are not as well. And sadly, what you get is, and I hate speaking out of turn, but you get people that jump on the bandwagon with stuff. You always will, because it's a way to get something, or they'll take advantage of the system. And sadly, that is part of it. And it's okay. I say it all the time. It's okay to have a little bit of a roller coaster of feeling a bit down and unhappy at times. Of course, it is. It doesn't mean you're necessarily struggling with mental health and a mental health issue, you're just a bit unhappy, but then it can lead and spiral. And I'm no expert, I have no qualifications in mental
I'm
health.
not
These
either.
are all observations as well. So I just want to point that out to the viewers.
Yeah,
These
no,
are just
exactly.
our personal opinions and not professional opinions as
Definitely.
well.
No, it's what it's what I've seen. I've got no agendas. I've got no narrative. I do it voluntary. I don't get paid to do it. I do it because I care. I do it because I was the sergeant major of men, and I took my responsibilities very seriously, and I still do today. I still see them as my lads, and if I can help them in any way, I mean, I look at some of the guys who I mentored through the years and guided in the right direction, and took some of the positives of how I approach things, and modelled it to their own style, and they did really well out of it. They had a good career. And like you said earlier, the military is a fantastic career. I wouldn't have gone to the places I'd travelled. I wouldn't have met some of the guys I met. I mean, I met some fantastic people. I met some real heroes. Some of the most quality guys you've ever seen because they were suited to that environment. But when they come out into Civvy Street, they changed because they weren't a good civvy. It's very difficult. But until the guys start feeling that somebody cares, that somebody's doing something about it, they're not getting fobbed off, they're not being pushed to the back of the queue, that's the issue. We need to treasure our services because the way things are going, we're going to need them. And it's no point. The other thing that people don't take into consideration is the reduction in numbers, the reduction in ships, the reduction in units. The units have been amalgamated, they've lost their identity. We're so small now. Somebody said to me the other day, we could fit the whole of the British forces serving into Wembley.
Wow.
It's mad. How does Mr. Starmer expect us to do anything against Russia? Really? It's just not going to happen. And we've got to start building a framework of support. And it's got to be good to be in the military again.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons why it's wrong. And I'm not here to criticise them because I'm not doing it anymore. But I'm picking up the aftermath. You're picking up the aftermath. You see, it's demoralising to see what's happening, not only in the country, but also with our veterans, the way they're treated, the way they're disrespected. The only time anybody ever wants to know you is remembrance.
Yeah, that
It's
one
the
day.
truth be known.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
the units don't invite their veterans back very often. I moved away to
a number.
Birmingham. You are just a number. Everybody says that, and that's true. And it's the same in the fire service, and it's the same in the police. All the services. That is the case, and I do understand the mentality. Like I said, they've got to produce the finished article, but we're not I think we are a throwaway society.
Yeah. They pay this stuff lip service. I've said this a million times. They talk a very, very good game about looking after mental health and doing something about it. But as organisations, they're not very good. We have organisations in the fire service. They know there's an issue, but they're not willing to accept it. All these organisations are exactly the same because they know it's going to cost money. It's not going to go away overnight. None of it's going to. But it's sad, the simple thing is, Jeff, which you'll probably agree with me, it seems like it can be an easy fix, especially for the military veterans. Like you've just said, a camp. There's a lot of disused camps all over the UK with the army shrinking, as we've just talked about.
Well, you put
House
the immigrants
veterans.
in them.
Yeah, well, house veterans, give veterans jobs, career training from other veterans or from organisations that come in and help that transition from military to civilian.
Yeah.
You'll end up with really, really qualified, really, really good workers in any sort of, you've killed two birds with one stone. You've got highly
Definitely.
motivated individuals that can do the job, do the task, focus on a task, do what's expected of them. But you've just got to nurture that a little bit and help them with the transition. It's dead simple.
It
And
is.
I don't know, but that's probably my brain, and I don't know your brain, just seeing it in a simplistic kind of way. But I don't know. There's a lot that could be done, and sadly, it's not being, isn't there?
Exactly. I mean, I don't think they want to solve the problem. If I'm honest, Chris, it's
Would
too big a
appear that way.
problem. They just really haven't got the will. I have been accused of it being too simplistic. I always say to people when they say that, no, so turn it round. There's two sides to a bloody pancake. You're trying to make it more complicated. That's the problem. Things should be simple. The best plans in a military sense are simple ones. You start making it complicated, it goes tits up.
Yeah.
You've got to make it as simple. Stop throwing obstacles in the way. What we should be doing is removing those obstacles. So it is simplistic. We know where we are and we know where we want to get. And like any plan, we have RVs, we move across it slowly and we rectify every obstacle as we come to it. But what they want to do is just keep throwing obstacles in your way, making you jump through hoops, and it will never be solved that way. It needs to be somebody that's got the vision and the plan and the backing to get it sorted out. And then it will improve. It will never go away now. I don't think we'll ever be back to the days when no suicide.
No.
I don't believe that because I think it's
No.
gone too far. But I only hope that we can ease back from the tragic loss of life. Like I said, 558 that we know of. And I've got a document here which I was just reading, which was the report from Manchester University that Johnny Mercer paid £1 million or thereabouts for to get done. We said 94, what year was it? Let me just check. 2021. In the report, bear in mind there isn't a problem, 257 died, they reckon. I'd love to know where they got them figures from because we reckon it's 94 and they're saying 257. So the problem could be 3 times more than what we're talking about because we don't capture everybody.
No, of course not. Not everyone is kind of, it makes the news or it makes the statistics. These, they're sad, and they probably come out months or years later down the line, like you say. So
Yeah,
it could be several times higher than what it is,
it's
and
definitely bigger.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well, look, Jeff, I could talk to you all night about this. It's clearly, it's clear to see that we're obviously very, very passionate about it. And I know you've devoted such a large amount of your post kind of service career to sorting this. So, look, from me and from from the veterans out there, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, what you continue to do. It means a lot to us all that we have people out there like yourself doing what you do. And I think that's reflected in your kind of recent award, the English Veteran of the Year award. I know you got a silver award for it, as I tried to spit out at the start during the introduction, but well deserved. Anyone that does
yeah,
exactly what you're doing and selfless
yeah.
devotion to a cause that means so much to so many. I just want to say thank you for what you do,
No,
Jeff.
I like just to finish off. I mean, I don't do it for awards. I do it because I care. Uh, I, hopefully today I've come across as honest, as open as I normally do, because I've got no narrative, I've got no agendas. I just want it, I want to put it out there and let people more qualified than me sort it out, who are paid to sort these things out. We need to support the veterans. We need to support the military. The military family as a whole is not where it needs to be. We want to build and create an environment that is family orientated, that is friendly, that is self-supporting, that you can trust the people, like it used to be. And it's not, it's not impossible. It is completely possible, but we've got to have the will to do it. We've got to have the right people in place. We don't want egos. We don't want people who've got agendas. All we want is people that care about their brothers and sisters of this brotherhood and turn it into what we know it is. It's a very special place. Your military service will never ever leave you. You'll never be a civvy again properly, but you've got so many qualities that you've brought with you from the military and your experiences. There is no reason why you should fail in Civvy Street, and that's how I see it.
No, I totally agree with everything you've said, Jeff. Look, an absolute pleasure talking to you. Like I say, you can see that you're
And you,
massively
sir.
passionate about it. I think I'll talk to you in a second off air, Jeff. But
Yeah.
like I said to you earlier on today, maybe a different cap badge. There's some fierce rivalry with the different colours in Bury, but I believe we have the same goal. And like we said before, veterans are the only people really that understand veterans. There are civilians out there that want to do the best for veterans as well. But look, veterans need to help veterans. As my T-shirt says, veterans for veterans. You know, that's a kind of a good slogan, a sponsor of mine, but it's the name of the company. But I think it is really fitting that it is veterans for veterans at the end of the day. So, Jeff, absolute pleasure chatting to you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
I'm
sir.
glad we made this happen. And look, keep up the good work, mate.
Thanks, mate. If I can help you out at all, anybody struggling, get them to contact us. Veterans United Against Suicide. I will point them in the right direction. We don't do the healing thing, but what we do is we get you some support when you need it, which is straight away.
Absolutely, Jeff. And look, I'll put the link to your Facebook group and all the links that need, you know, and various kind of organisations that can help in the bio of this podcast when it comes out.
Right.
Jeff, absolute pleasure, buddy. You take care. Speak soon.
Look at yourself, sir.
Stories from the edge where the healing begins.